Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a very interesting book which has come to Chambers for review. The book title is called Medical Treatment and the Law, Issues of Consent. It's got a subtitle, The Protection of the Vulnerable Children and Adults Lacking Capacity. It's now in a second edition and it's been written by Richard Harper. It's part of the family law series of publications, which we really do rely on in family proceedings. And this, of course, is an imprint from Jordan Publishers. Now, the title that Elizabeth and I have given our review for this book is For Family Practitioners, an in-depth analysis of issues of consent in medical treatment, now in a new second edition. Let's look at the book first of all. Here it is, again, Medical Treatment and the Law, Issues of Consent. There is the spine, and there is the back of the book. So quite a lot of detail. It's a paperback, it's not a hardback, a paperback. It runs to just under 400 pages. Detailed index at the back, which you can see there, and it's actually referring to paragraph numbering, not page numbering, in the book itself. If we just open the book, we'll have a look at it. There's the actual title there at the beginning, and then there's another page there. Then there's a foreword. It's always worth reading the foreword. The foreword is by Sir James Mumby, and as usual it's very focused in what he says. Do read the preface as well, which I think you'll find of some help. Then we get on to the contents section. The contents are quite detailed, as you can probably see, and you should be able to find what you're looking for pretty quickly when you go through the various chapter headings. It's an important and a controversial area of law, of course. Chapter 13 is the final chapter, and then there are appendices at the end. What you do have, quite interesting, is the appendices and all the details for each chapter are actually at the end of each chapter rather than right at the end of the book. So you've got appendices, guidelines, President's guidance and so forth, and then the index right at the back. Then you've got the table of cases, and after that you've got a few statutes and statutory instruments there. Then you've got some international material that is becoming much more noticeable, the international material. Then you've got abbreviations, which I think are very helpful for just reminding you, if you've forgotten a particular point, what something actually stands for. This is the first part. It's actually split into chapters and parts, and it starts with general principles. And then you can see the structure. There's the first page. You've got a paragraph numbering at the sides there. Then as you run through, there are no footnotes or anything like that, but what you do have, if I can show you at the end of each chapter, we'll go to chapter 1 first of all, Medical Treatment and Consent. It runs through. In fact, it's some of the later chapters where it gives a reasonable example of what you've got. For instance, chapter 8. You have the appendices at the back of the chapter itself with all the relevant material that you actually need, and then you do have a little bit of footnoting to go with it there. But generally speaking, in the body copy of the book you don't, but you do of course have quite a large number of case law citations. It's a very interesting book, as I say, it runs to about 400 pages, and now in a second edition, so it's established itself as I think quite an important work for the family practitioner. So this is what we say about the book. Whatever doctors do, they must do legally in the course of their professional duties. However, as every patient is different and every case is different, issues of medical treatment and the law continually arise, all of which centre on the question of consent, and it's an emotive issue, of course. Consent is the issue which pertains particularly to the vulnerable, which is why, as the title indicates, this book focuses on the protection of vulnerable children and adults lacking capacity. And as the president of the Family Division and president of the Court of Protection, Sir James Mumby delivers a number of well-deserved compliments to the author, Richard Harper, one of which is that given the complexity of the subject matter, the book is distinguished in its accessibility both to lawyers and non-lawyers, and readers in both camps, we would say, will certainly appreciate the clarity with which this difficult subject is presented, particularly the informed commentary on practice and procedures. I certainly found that helpful, and also the fundamental principles illustrated by the extracts from cases cited and discussed throughout. And I think anybody who's been involved who has a concern about consent will find this book easy to read. So it's actually applicable not just for the professional and the advisor, but also for the layperson too. Now, writing in the preface, Harper states that the main intention of the book is to assist not only the legal profession and the judiciary, but also those working within the field of medicine and other areas concerned with the welfare and protection of the vulnerable, whether they're adults or children, with consent being the central and pivotal issue. Now, an ageing population and the increasingly recognised and respected, it's hoped, right of patients to question what the doctor is doing certainly necessitate an authoritative and informed treatment of the multiplicity of issues which pertain to medical treatment and the law. Days have changed when we just took what was being said. We have a much more intelligent, a much more literate and questioning population now, and that's right that we should look at these matters perhaps slightly differently. One of the prime concerns then is the duty of the doctor, which is elucidated in the chapter on the doctor and the courts, which I think any doctor should read actually, which points out, for example, that a medical doctor owes a fundamental duty to his or her patient, subject to obtaining any necessary consent to treat the patient in accordance with his or her own best clinical judgment. Certainly the guidance provided by this book is both authoritative and detailed, which makes it especially valuable following the implementation in 2007 of the Mental Capacity Act 2005. As you know, we've got the two pieces of legislation, and it's still a bit of a confused area of law, frankly. But of course there is other relevant legislation now that's come in. Logically structured is the book, certainly for ease of use, and it has extensive tables of cases, contents, and an excellent index. You've also got some statutes and statutory instruments and international material now as well. And I did, as I say, like the abbreviations section. Let me conclude by saying that practitioners who recognise that this is an increasingly important area of law will welcome this new second edition in our view. It's from Jordan's, and it's what has become a highly regarded work of reference in its own right. Whether experienced or inexperienced, I think family lawyers will no doubt consider it an essential purchase for the well-stocked professional library. And the publication date is cited at 2015. Now, let's just have a quick look at the book again. There it is. That's the title. Medical Treatment and the Law, Issues of Consent. And then you've got the spine and then the back. The back actually sets out a little bit of what I've said in a slightly different way in my review. Just opening it in the middle. Adult refusal of medical treatment, non-consensual treatment. That really is a very important area as well, because of the concerns that are certainly being expressed today, when in fact the courts have to step in, and there are powers. So you've got quite a large number of cases which are listed there to set out exactly what the problems are. These are specific circumstances, and these are actually what we would describe as all the hard cases. And as I said, at the back you have, at the back of each chapter, or each of the main chapters, you have appendices which go with what is actually contained in the chapter. The book is also an e-book, which I hadn't mentioned before, so it's very useful to know that it's available in a much wider variety of areas. Although there's no detail about the e-book on the detailed part of the ISBN section there, but it's certainly available if you go to the familylaw.co.uk website. Well, thank you to Richard Harper and to Family Law and Jordans very much for continuing to give us this excellent service in the family law jurisdiction. It's greatly appreciated, and I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of the profession for what you're doing for us. It's very helpful, and I know as we're moving very much towards the public having much more knowledge of this sort of area of activity, this book will be interesting to a lot of people as lay people. So thank you to all. Bye bye.